Hello, everybody, and welcome to Random Encounter 272 or 272. My name is Jono Logan, and today we're going to be talking about the news that everyone's talking about, which is Yakuza. Yakuza. There was a big Yakuza show a few days ago, so that's pretty much going to be the whole episode today. I'm just going to talk about Yakuza for the next, hour or so. So, just sit there and sit back and enjoy it. It's going to be a really fun ride.
Stop. Hello, and welcome to episode 272 of Random Encounter, and we are here to talk about what you all think we're here to talk about, which is Final Fantasy XVI. We are recording this, 3 days after the game has come out, and so we've got a lot of early impressions. I reviewed the game for the site, and we got the code really early, so I actually finished it weeks ago, but I'm going to try not to say a whole lot today. But before we do that, and before we even talk about the Nintendo Direct, which we want to talk about very briefly as well, I want to go ahead and introduce our panel, starting with you, Ben.
Hi.
And Des.
Hello.
And Caitlin.
Hey there.
And I believe it's the first appearance on any podcast of the site for David Silbert.
Great to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Glad to have you. Like I said, I wanted to quickly talk about, and we could talk about Final Fantasy XVI for hours. We're going to try not to do that. Obviously, I was a fan if you've read the review. I want to quickly touch on the Nintendo Direct, which interestingly dropped at the exact same time as embargo lifted for Final Fantasy XVI reviews. I'm not sure if that was a coincidence or not. Oh, whatever. Before we go forward further, I just want to quickly talk about some favorite things or things you're excited about from the Nintendo Direct. I thought it was a good show. I thought there were a lot of things in there that I was excited about. So who wants to start us off? Just give me one game you're excited about from the Nintendo Direct.
Super Mario RPG Remake.
Oh my goodness. It looks so good.
It looks beautiful. I'm super excited to play this game again.
Yeah, I played it when it first came out. That's the only time I've played it, and I think at the time I would have considered it my favorite RPG because I was young and it was easy. But I really love that game, and I've been wanting to replay it for years.
It's actually my first RPG that I ever played.
That's a great starter RPG, I think. I know Mystic Quest was supposed to be that back in the day, but that I think is a great one. If you got kids, starting them on that one I think is great. What about everybody else? Other things you're excited about?
Well, I was just going to say, I guess the obvious answer is Super Mario Bros. Wonder. That definitely looks wild. But I guess if I'm sticking to RPGs, I'm intrigued by Star Ocean's second story arc. Haven't played the original 2 games, actually. I haven't really played any Star Ocean, so I'm excited for the kind of 2D, 3D Octopath treatment.
Yeah, I look at the art style of it, and I'm like, I don't understand how you're doing this. It looks really interesting to me. And I've only played the game once, and I played it a long time ago. And I remember the crafting being really weird in that game. And it would gate progression behind crafting. But it's the only Star Ocean game I've played. And I'm I think it's time for me to go back to it again.
It looked gorgeous. And yeah, that it's almost like an evolution almost of the Octopath HD 2D because it was a bit more of a 3D HD 2D than Octopath games have been.
Yeah, I think they actually called it 3D 2D.
Yeah.
Instead of HD 2D in the marketing materials. So.
I didn't even notice that. And for a year, I accidentally always called HD 2D 3D 2D. So I'm glad they've taken the moniker that I accidentally used for a year. That's great. Yeah, I think that one looks really cool. And honestly, even though it's not an RPG Wonder, I'm so into 2D Mario that I agree. And I'm this looks wild and really kind of odd, but in a way that I'm into. So I'm excited for that one too.
Yeah, so I'm probably most excited for Dragon Quest Monsters.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Which looks really cool. You get to play as Sorrow, the villain from 4, which is really interesting. And they added fusion mechanics, almost like an SMT kind of influence thing. So that's really exciting. It's cool to see the series come back since we didn't get Joker 3 or any of the remakes on 3DS. So, there's always a worry that they stopped localizing them entirely, but it's cool to see it come back. So that's probably my favorite. When
it's Dragon Quest, you're just never sure, even now, because Dragon Quest X, they have the offline one. We still don't have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I, honestly, I am not into monster collecting games at all. I hate to say this as a member of RPG fan, I have never played more than 15 minutes of a Pokemon game. I watched Alana play a whole lot of Violet or Scarlet, whatever one she was playing, and I was like, man, this is the worst looking game I've ever seen. And that did not make me any more excited to play a Pokemon game. But Sorrow prequel with monster fusing and in the Dragon Quest world, yes, I am 100% going to play this. And that is actually my answer as well. That is like the game. I cannot believe that is the game I am most excited about coming out of the Direct, given Super Mario RPG. But I think it looks dope.
Zach, don't worry. I'm also not really into monster game, Pokemon, Digimon. It's not. I tried, and I don't hate them, but it's just not my thing.
I think maybe it like came out at a weird time. Like I was in high school when Pokemon came out, and like I certainly like knew people who were playing Pokemon, but like I was like too cool for school, right? Like I'm not playing that dumb anime video game, even though like I'd played RPGs since I was 4. But yeah, and I don't know. It's just like it's never stuck with me. But yeah, I think that this is going to be the time I'm going to do it. Like in Dragon Quest V, one of my favorite things to do in that game is to grab the monsters. So obviously, I don't totally hate the idea. Anything else people are really excited about from the Direct?
For me, aside from Super Mario RPG, Star Ocean, and that Mario Bad Drug Trip game, I'm really looking forward to the Silent Hope game because I want to see how they write a story with 7 silent protagonists.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to work, but I think that game looks slick. Like it looks fun. It was like one of those things where like I feel like I got drowned out by everything else that, ports and everything else. But like that game, I was like, this looks like a new IP that I can get behind. It looks cool.
I really hope there's some kind of multiplayer component to it because it looks like the perfect kind of game for you to like just kind of go explore a dungeon with a friend with. And it would be kind of weird juggling 7 characters if you can only control 1.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to work, but I'm definitely intrigued by it. But yeah, I thought it was a cool Direct. I was a little surprised not to see any Zelda DLC news there, but I guess they're holding that for a while. But yeah, I thought it was a cool Direct. But that's not really why we're here. As cool as the Direct was, we are here to talk about Final Fantasy XVI, which is a game that just released last week at this point. I guess this is posting on Monday. And, our panelists are sort of at various points. Some of them have played way too much of this game. Yes. And others have played a more healthy amount. But I have played through it all the way. I've done New Game Plus for like 15 hours at this point. And it is a game that I'm excited to talk to all of you about because I don't want to talk to anyone on the internet about it right now. Because even if they love it or they hate it, the discourse is insufferable already.
Yeah. Twitter is usually a cesspool, but especially a cesspool right now if you're looking for FF16 opinions.
Even people who like the game, and I give this game a 97. Like it's like it is now my favorite single player Final Fantasy game, and I knew I was going to be high on it. But even people who like it as much as I do, I'm like, shut up. This game has flaws, and it definitely does. And I can't remember the last time a Final Fantasy game came out that wasn't controversial. Maybe like Final Fantasy IX. But I just think that it gets elevated by online discourse at this point. So before we even talk about Final Fantasy XVI, I do want to quickly ask all of you, just very quickly, what your favorite Final Fantasy game is. I don't want to go through your whole series history. That would take a while. But your favorite Final Fantasy game that you've played up to now, because I think it's going to help sort of frame our discussion in terms of how you're feeling about Final Fantasy XVI. So starting with you, David, what's your favorite Final Fantasy before this one?
Yeah, well, so my favorite Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy XII, and on my bio on the site, I joke that the reason I got introduced to Final Fantasy was because my brother went to GameStop and needed a birthday present from me, and it's like, I need something a nerd will like. What should I get him? He's like, get him Final Fantasy XII. Great pick. I just love kind of the open-ended zones. I still think it has some of the finest voice acting in the series, and I love the Gambit system, so great game.
Yeah, I was late to 12. I didn't play it until the Zodiac Age on the PS4, just because somehow the discourse, even at that time, I was like, oh, I'm not sure. And then I got around to it, and I absolutely love it. I'll talk more about my favorite later, but I love Final Fantasy 12. What about everybody else? Caitlin?
Well, I don't think this will surprise anyone when I say that my favorite is Final Fantasy 14. But if you were to press me and say, well, not anything but 14, a single player Final Fantasy, I would probably also say Final Fantasy 12.
Yeah. I'll just go ahead and say that, yes, Final Fantasy 14 is definitely my favorite Final Fantasy game, but it feels like an unfair comparison. Like it's like 4 Final Fantasies in one. And I've spent, I've only been playing the game for 3 years. I say only, like probably 5,000 hours on that game at this point. It's incredible. But yeah, I guess for me, otherwise it would probably have been before this one, either Final Fantasy VI or maybe 12, or if Tactics counts. I really love Final Fantasy Tactics.
Tactics counts.
So yeah, it might be Tactics. I don't know, man. I really like Final Fantasy. My nostalgic favorite is Final Fantasy IV, but I know that one doesn't really hold a candle to later ones. Anyway, I like Final Fantasy. What about you, Ben? We just talked about Final Fantasy recently.
Yeah, we did. I would say my favorite Final Fantasy game would be Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, but for mainline, I would probably say Final Fantasy V is my favorite.
I love that answer. Tactics Advance. I've never finished that game, but I need to. And I really liked your piece on that about escapism in Tactics Advance. I think it was really excellent. And what about you, Des?
So mine would be probably Final Fantasy VIII, because I really love all the weird, like, craziness to it, and just how you can break it wide open, and how kind of anything that you want to do with the battle system, you can kind of do. So I've been trying to replay it recently, but I'm waiting on a mod to restore a lot of the backgrounds, if you saw how the remastered one looked.
Yeah.
And it's been really fun to kind of take what I know now to go back to it and just kind of see, like, oh, what can I do with this junction system? Because it's extremely interesting, and I love how weird and just bizarre it gets.
I've been meaning to replay Final Fantasy VIII because it's one of those things where you're as you get older and your tastes change and you maybe mature a little bit, sometimes things you didn't like in the past are more appealing. And I have a feeling that Final Fantasy VIII, I liked it, but I think I was not as crazy about it. I have a feeling if I went back and replayed it now, I would like it a lot more.
That's how I feel about 9, because when I played 9 after 8, I was like, this is not really what I'm looking for. And so, and if you've heard me on previous podcasts, probably disparaging 9 a little bit and getting yelled at by Izzy for it, it's one of those games that I really want to go back to and kind of see, like, how do I feel about it now, like, 22 years later? So kind of the same feeling where I'm sure that when I replay it, I'm going to like it way more than I did back when I was a dumb kid.
8 and 9 are the two that I want to replay the most. Because it's funny, like, when Final Fantasy VII came out, like, I adored it. And then I played it for review for the site a few years ago, and like I gave it like maybe like an 83 or something. I was like, it's still a good game, but it has some serious seams. And then, like, I remember coming off of that to 8, I was like, what is this? And I was like maybe 13 or 14, and I didn't really understand how junctioning worked. And I think I was too hyped for Final Fantasy 9. And I was like, this is going to be the greatest game of all time. And it wasn't. So I was disappointed, but I want to go back and check it out. So yeah, I mean, I love that all our answers have been so varied, because, Final Fantasy, in so much of the conversation about this game is like, what is Final Fantasy? And it's an annoying question, but I think it's an interesting one that if you really think about, like, why we love the series, or maybe, love, elements of the series, and we're all approaching it from different angles. And so I think that will be interesting to hear about some of your thoughts as we're going through this. So, Final Fantasy XVI, just give a brief overview. It is a fully action-based RPG. It, especially in the early going, especially where a lot of you are at this point, like, it feels like it has like the barest threads of RPG elements. I do think that changes more later, like where Des is at this point. I think it feels more like an RPG. And it is clearly heavily inspired by Game of Thrones. Like, if you've watched Game of Thrones, like, oh my goodness. Early on, I was like, this is pushing on the boundaries of plagiarism just like a tiny bit. But that gets a little bit better later. And it doesn't really bother me because I like Game of Thrones, but it certainly has making an effort to become more mature in some ways. Like Yoshi P has said, like, people accuse us of being too anime. And let me tell you, some of the fights in this game are like the most anime thing I have ever seen. Like, they're incredibly anime, but he's like dressing it up in like this darker fantasy setting. Honestly, the anime parts of this game are my favorite parts of this game. The dark fantasy setting I'm cool with, but like those fights, they are so good. So I just want to quickly talk about early impressions, and then we can kind of just jump around from there to different things. So anybody want to get us started just talking about sort of generally speaking, maybe kind of how far you are and your early impressions of the game at this point?
Well, I guess I'll start, since I think I am the not farthest, the least far out of the group, I guess. I am approaching. If you played the demo and you finished the demo, the story intro, the demo, you got access to a second section which takes place a little bit later in the game. I am approaching that section of the game, so sort of what I assume is going to be one of the big, one of the first big reveals and twists and major fights is where I am.
And what are your thoughts about it so far?
I am mad at myself for not having more time to play this game because it is sucking me in. I'm liking a lot of it. There I have a few quibbles with not so much with the story or the gameplay, but some of the design. The camera is my worst enemy right now. If I had to say that. But otherwise, I'm loving the tone. I am, of course, loving the music because Soken is amazing. And I am excited to see where things go because it already, like, the first couple hours were already kind of crazy with the one of the opening fights, but also just like the blood. There's so much blood. And I'm like, I know that sounds weird to say because it's like there are other games, other RPGs where, there's blood, but like for a Final Fantasy to go that hardcore on some of what happens in the opening hours I knew it was going to happen, but I was still kind of like, holy crap.
Yeah. And like, and I remember the first time I played Final Fantasy VII, I was so shocked by the profanity, but here, like, they dropped so many F-bombs.
Yes.
And at first I was like, I'm not sure about that. Then I think about like the way I talk in real life, and I say that word at least twice as often. So it doesn't really bother me. But out of curiosity, how is the camera causing you to struggle? Because I never really noticed that myself, and I'm curious how it's you're struggling with it.
So it's a little bit, well, how would I describe it? What I notice is that when I'm panning the camera around and moving my character, kind of ironic because they actually fixed this in 14 recently. It's partly the thing where if you're moving and you're panning the camera wants to pan back to behind your character instead of letting you just place it wherever you want. And that creates occasionally a little bit of like, I'm moving the camera a bit, but then I had to let go of the stick and it pumps back, which is a little disorienting. So I know you can turn up the sensitivity way high and that it's all the way up is way too high. It's not that I need it to rotate faster. It's just, it's a little floaty, I guess, at times.
I could definitely see that being an issue, especially in a game like this where it's kind of important that you can see what's going on.
Yeah. So, and it never obscures my ability to see enemies and whatnot. It's just as I'm moving around and panning the camera, sometimes there's a little jarringness where the camera's like, no, I'm going here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why?
And it's funny that you mentioned that because in 14, I've noticed that they made that change and it's like so important, especially like, I don't know, I think like about like P8, I won't talk about Final Fantasy 14 too much, but like there are certain mechanics in that fight where like I really need the camera to be exactly where I need the camera to be and please don't move on me. So yeah, I could see that being frustrating.
But I mean, it's a nitpick. It's minor. Like it's
what everybody else's thoughts so far and how far along are you?
Yeah, I think I'll hop in here because I think I'm probably not too much farther in than Caitlin is. I kind of wrapped up that segment that from the end of the demo, and my impressions are good so far. I think it's too early to say. I mean, really with any RPG, but especially Final Fantasy, where it kind of hinges on really interesting sudden plot twists and character development. It's hard to see where the narrative is going, but I'm excited. I think one area where I'm very, very pleasantly pleased is with the combat. And so I think especially I'm not a big 14 person. I played a little bit and I do enjoy it. Especially, as I said, I like 12. But 15 was a game that I platinumed, and it was definitely a kind of a love-hate relationship with that game. And I see a lot of parallels between 15 and 16. Namely with the combat and kind of how flashy the combat in 15 was, but it always kind of had that unwieldy feel to it where I'm like, okay, you can switch between weapons and do all these things, but it just doesn't really feel like there's any like rhyme or reason. There's not like a strategy to what I'm doing. I'm just doing it to look cool.
Yeah.
Whereas in 16, I was holding my breath when I was starting. I'm like, is this going to be similar? But then, you start to realize, okay, this kind of combo leads to its own combo. This move leads to its own combo string. If I end on this kind of icon move, I can launch enemies into the air, or I could have Torgal, launch someone in the air. Then I can Phoenix shift up to them and swing down. So it feels more gratifying for sure. And I could see it getting, deeper and deeper the more kind of different abilities you unlock. I think my only real quibbles so far have been lock on feels a little iffy to me. Maybe I'm just not. Maybe I'm wrong,
Yeah.
Zach. I don't. Yeah,
No.
There's not really a clean way to do it, right? To toggle between enemies other than unlocking and then relocking on.
Mm-hmm.
And then aside from that, just performance. I'm surprised in performance mode on. I mean, I guess PS5 is obviously the only platform yet, but it doesn't feel like a very stable frame rate. Or if it is
not.
It feels like it's jittery. So
if you look at Digital Foundry's analysis, it is all over the place in performance mode. Which is actually part of the reason why I'm playing in graphics mode myself.
Yeah, I think graphics mode caps you at 30 FPS, right?
Yeah.
Which I think probably would work better for some people. And it's so fascinating to me because it obviously I watched that video and I've seen, I read a lot of reviews when embargo lifted because I was curious how everybody's opinions aligned with mine. And almost everybody's mentioned it. But I played in performance mode and I didn't notice it almost at all. And I don't know how it's possible. Like I was playing it last night again and I'm like, I still just don't see it. And I don't know if it's like something my TV is correcting or if it is like just my eyes don't see it. It's fascinating to me because I feel bad that I didn't, mention it in my review because it's obviously an issue, but I just didn't see it.
I think it's different for different people. Like I remember when I played Horizon Forbidden West for review, I was surprised because I played it in performance mode. I tried playing it in graphics mode, but panning the camera was I couldn't do it in graphics mode. And I remembered seeing people say that performance mode was bad and it looked awful. And I was like, it still looks freaking amazing. What are you on? But here it's weird. I'm the reverse where it's like, actually, I think I prefer graphics mode, which I will say, I think that the graphics mode in 16 is more stable in terms of its frame rate lock and frame pacing than I remember Horizon Forbidden West being. Like I'm the kind of person who in games like this I would probably prefer performance mode. I would prefer a higher frame rate, but I'm actually just fine with graphics. I think they did a good job of making it stable and still enjoyable. So I don't know. Yeah, I think different people eyes work differently. So I'm not surprised that you didn't, not everyone notices it. So, and that's why it's nice that there's an option. Like they could have just been like, you all get 30 FPS, no other modes. I would like to see if maybe they can improve the performance mode or maybe offer like how some games give you like a 40 FPS option in the future. Maybe they can do that.
Yeah, because I think that looking at Digital Foundry, it didn't dip too far below 40 usually. So I think that would probably help. But yeah, I mean, like my only issue with graphics mode was that like the haloing that it would do when you moved around characters sometimes, like the motion blur stuff.
Is that more intense in graphics?
Yeah, I think it's more intense in graphics mode.
Okay.
And so
that is noticeable.
I found that distracting.
And yeah, it does distract me occasionally.
Yeah. And all the stuff about the combat, I want to talk more in depth about the combat in a second here. But I think the combat's great. So before we get to that, which I think will probably be the first thing we really dig into, let's talk about everybody else and sort of where they are and their early impressions of the game.
Yeah. So I think I'm a good bit further than either Caitlin or David, but not quite as far as Des. So I'm really enjoying the game. I think that the spectacle and the visuals and the the quality of like the performances, like the voice performances and the motion capture and everything, I think is like pretty unparalleled for other action RPGs like on PS4, PS5. I think that's definitely like the strongest aspect of the game to me. I'm a little lukewarm on the combat. But I do think one thing that they nailed in this game is the feel of the game, just like how it feels to control Clive, how it feels to run around in the environment. It's very smooth. It definitely has that Japanese action game feel to it. And a lot of other games in the genre struggle with that. So that's definitely one of the things I want to praise most about the game.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that for me, and I'm looking at like the whole thing, like I'm looking at like, I don't know, like on my review, like somebody complained, like a lot of people complained about this actually about my review. Like I gave like most things like a 95, but then like I gave the score overall 97. And I think part of why that is what you were just talking about, is how like it feels like such a complete package. Like it feels like it's polished and it knows how it wants to move from thing to thing to thing. And it all like feel like it congeals in a way that I agree. Like I think other Japanese action RPGs have struggled with, in particular, and so I think it just presents itself so confidently that and I got the review code almost a month before, and usually that means they're confident in a game, right? And you could sense that confidence in the way that it was presenting itself.
Yeah, this is definitely a game where you can feel the budget and the production value, and I think that is something like a lot of people will come away from this game remembering. There's so many big bombastic moments that like stick in your mind. I've seen comparisons to Asura's Wrath. If anyone here's played that
I've
game.
seen the comparisons, but now I want to play it.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, I think that comparison is pretty apt. But unlike that game where it's very short and that's like all there is to it, there's like a whole other game to this, and it has like all of those kind of moments that you saw in that game, the spectacle and huge scale of conflict that you would see in that game. So it's pretty impressive in that way for sure.
I agree. And Des, I know you're other than me the furthest along. So I'd kind of like to hear some of your impressions, and especially because the pacing and the way this game feels changes as it goes. I don't want to get too far into why that's the case, because I feel like in the early going, it's just like linear thing to big action set piece to linear thing to cutscene to linear thing, and that changes later on. So I'm particularly curious about your thoughts at this point.
Yeah, so kind of like the others and other people that I've talked to, I was mildly concerned with how kind of Game of Thrones it was at first, and I even had to suffer a couple very long read-throughs of people's like 5-paragraph wine sessions about this is from this book, this is from that book,
Oh
these
my
are these
God.
characters. Yeah, it was kind
awful.
Yeah, it was insufferable. But you really see it, even early on, all of the like Final Fantasy trappings into it. But what really got me is there's a point where it kind of like, I guess for like lack of a better term, it like takes the mask off and is like, no, I am the most Final Fantasy game.
Yeah,
And
I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, and it was so hype for me is that I was just like, okay, you're still here. You're just kind of, wearing a different outfit. And like with the combat, everything opens up, and we'll talk more about combat later, but it's really impressive how much like Devil May Cry and Dragon's Dogma you can see in it. And as for the actual like pacing, early on, it is one of those, like you said, straight down a corridor, cutscene, cutscene. But when you get to that like first open area, it's not huge. And I think we've all been there, or I don't think Caitlin has yet.
A couple of us haven't quite gotten there yet.
You'll notice that it's much larger, but it's not like I'm trying to think of some games where it's not like Final Fantasy 13 where it's like, oh, just hallways and then open field.
I think the closest comparison I can think of is Final Fantasy 12. Like we're not talking like Xenoblade here,
Right?
But definitely you get these larger field areas, maybe a little bit Tales of Arise even.
Yeah,
Tales of Arise is maybe a little more exploration heavy, but yeah, we're not looking at some massive scope here.
Yeah, and what's interesting is how they build upon that, where like in some of their early interviews they said it's not open world, it's open zone. And when you kind of explore around and see places unlock, it's really interesting how that all comes together and really does start to feel like kind of massive, and you're not just going down hallways and corridors and stuff and going from cutscene to cutscene. So I've been very impressed with it. And with the last fight that I did, as mentioned earlier, it is like the most anime thing, and like to the point where I'm like sitting there just like giddy on my couch, just like, oh my god, this is so awesome. And in one of my
I was
Discord,
texting my partner during it. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till you get to X fight. I can't even tell you what it's called, but it's the most insane thing I've ever done in a video game.
I've had to like put little things in like very vague brackets and be like, oh yeah, X the Y, or this fight in this particular XY, and just kind of leave all those little vague hints and hope that when the person gets there, they basically scream back. But it's just been very crazy and mind blowing. And some of my Discord like messages between a friend have just been like, that was the most hype fight ever. And then like 4 hours later, that was the most hype fight ever. And then it's just been like 6 or 7 of those in a row, to the point that I don't know how they're going to kind of top the last one that I did. And even the one that Caitlin's coming up to is like, that thing kind of blew me away, and I was very excited by it. So I'm really hoping it has the same effect for anyone who hasn't hit it yet.
I'm looking forward to it, although I'm a little bit spoiled because I watched some of the preview coverage that went over that section.
I mean, I think we can talk about that section because it's like literally the first thing we posted, right? Scott's video stuff. So it was the Garuda fight. And yeah, I mean, like, I thought that fight was incredible. But man, it just like amps up. And I think that the one you're talking about, Des, which is the 4th icon, which I can just say, is probably my favorite. But like there are at least 2 more that like are even more insane in terms of just like the scope of them. But that one, just like the different phases to it, I thought just like how it felt so different in every phase too. I thought was just incredibly cool.
Yeah, and I kind of felt this when I first played the demo, and it opens up with the Ifrit and Phoenix fight, is that it felt like there was a lot of near to it.
Yeah.
And that was really exciting to me. And it's been really great to kind of see that feeling stick with me through every like large encounter. And then even some of I won't spoil it, but there's a particular fight that uses some Final Fantasy XIV mechanics, and I was like noticing everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
From the
like you have to like move in and out with like these AoEs.
Yeah. Dodging particular moves that may have killed me 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like this like bloom of nostalgia in my heart, and I was like, this is so cool. But
as a 14 fan already, I mean, even where I am, there's so much obvious influence. I mean, not just the presence of Masayoshi Soken doing the music, but there's an orchestrion in your hub area that is like literally it's the orchestrion from 14, and I fought a mid boss that I'm pretty sure was a ninja and looked to be using a lot of the same moves. And then later on, I fought in sort of a lead up to the Garuda fight. If you play Final Fantasy XIV Garuda, you know that she summons additional like mini Garudas, and I had to fight one of those, and I was like, it's the same name and it even looks similar, and I'm like, oh, my heart.
And you could even hear, I think, a little bit of the Garuda theme from 14 in the Garuda fight, in the music for the Garuda fight. I mean, I think like later on, like you get like side quests that literally like have a plus above their head, and I'm like, oh well, I know what that means. That means this is an important one. I better go do that one. And like in a true to form, like it'll unlock like, you know, you can have more potions or the ability to ride a chocobo or whatever. So yeah, I mean, like there's so much of the design of this game that's endemic to it from 14, and that really works for me. But I guess if you don't really like 14, that might frustrate you, because I do think there are some weaknesses to this game, and I'll probably talk about some of those later, that I do think are also endemic to 14. But yeah, I mean, like if you know the parlance of 14, this is going to feel like you're going to feel at home here, which I think is very cool. Yeah. So let's talk about that combat. And honestly, like so like the combat in general, like as we've been talking about, like it feels very much like a Platinum developed RPG or like Devil May Cry, which makes sense because originally like it's like a break off from them. And it feels like that because you got like these dodges and you can parry, and perfect dodges are what you want, and combos are a really big part of it. But then like the addition of the icon abilities, which you'll get, I won't say how many you get eventually, but you get like, and they get sort of spaced out throughout. So like you start with Phoenixes, and then the next one you get is Garuda, and then that's where I'll stop in terms of how many you get. But they give you such an ability to change the way you want to play. So like my partner is pretty far along, and she loves Garuda's abilities, and I never really jived with Garuda's skills. I felt like I missed with them all the time. Like I wasn't really into aerial combat. I was more into like stay away and kind of kite and hit them with stuff from afar, because I'm a coward like that. So yeah, I think the combat here is really cool, but I do think that it's a little easy. Eventually, like you get so overpowered by the end of this game that like you can just like absolutely obliterate everything. So in terms of the combat, how is everybody really feeling with it? And we could kind of talk about the icon fights as well, and what those fights are looking like.
Yeah, so Des mentioned Dragon's Dogma a little bit ago, and I think that's a really interesting comparison point because these two games, there's a lot of similarities, I think, between this game and Dragon's Dogma, but they almost have like the opposite approach, where Dragon's Dogma is developers who worked on Devil May Cry, taking that, basics of that combat system and then expanding it out into like a fully fledged RPG, right? And to me, 16 is almost like an RPG team taking that Devil May Cry combat and stripping out a lot of the more RPG elements that the series is known for, streamlining it into just like a action, combat system that's much different than what you've seen in other Final Fantasy games. And I think I think that's in some ways a really good choice on their part, because I think it makes the game a lot more approachable. I think it makes the game very engaging to play moment to moment. The feel of the game is very good. But one thing I definitely miss from it is that kind of variety and character building that you see in a lot of RPGs and even a lot of other action RPGs, and you don't have as much in this game. I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but that was one thing that stood out to me playing it, comparing it to things like Souls or comparing it to Dragon's Dogma or other similar action RPGs.
I think it kind of depends on how you approach the combat too, because like how Zach was saying is that he's very ranged and kind of hides back and attacks from afar. I've had other friends who are just like the most aggro, in your face, no utility moves, no like dodging or anything like that. And then like myself I'm more like counter focused. So like Heat Wave is my favorite move in the entire game so far. So there's not the whole like building characters like you're saying. You can only upgrade so much, but it's been really interesting, at least for me, to see how everyone approaches every fight differently. And I guess to move on to something that I'm a little critical about is element doesn't matter. And so it's a little like sad that you can't like use like fire magic on a plant and do more damage, or there's no like status effects that you can do. I think I've been hit by one by maybe the ninja that Caitlin was talking about, but it feels like it lost a little bit of Final Fantasy in its journey to be like a more Devil May Cry, Dragon's Dogma type thing. But as you do get more icon abilities, you'll definitely see a lot more of that Dragon's Dogma part of it, especially with the third one. It kind of has some of those like magic classes from Dragon's Dogma 1. But I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and there's an ability, because like they have these time trials sort of littered throughout the world, where you can only use one icon abilities, and they have forced you to use certain iconic abilities. And there's one move for the one you're talking about that I was like, oh my gosh, I did not realize how powerful this was, and now it is part of my Final Fantasy build. So I do think they give you some variety, and I think early on I can totally understand how it feels like there's not enough variety, and I think even later on I would understand how you would think that way. But I think that by the time you get all the icons that are available to you, and a lot of them feel really different. Like the very last one you get feels so different from the previous 6 that like it would change your approach to combat entirely. But yeah, the status effect thing I think is like kind of tossed in. Eventually there's going to be like these characters who like cast Brave, and you want to kill them first because they make everybody around them more powerful. But it feels kind of tacked on. And I would have liked to see maybe like even like a poison status effect or something that simple tossed in. Because like all these like plant animal or like plant creatures and like the Morbol that you fight at the very beginning, like bad breath doesn't feel as scary if they're not going to totally debilitate me, right?
Yeah, and it would have been cool if you could like ignite the bad breath or something like that. Like give you something to kind of encourage you to use like charge shots or something like that. And as someone who really likes the Trails series, like basically turning a character into the Doom Train summon from Final Fantasy VIII is like one of my favorite things to do. So kind of not having the ability to blind or poison or petrify enemies is a little bit of a miss on me.
Yeah, I guess it's funny because I didn't even think about like status ailments and things of that nature. I guess when you bring it up, I'm like, yeah, that is kind of a bummer that it's not in. I guess for me personally, when I'm playing, I think back to my time playing the demo and playing. At first, I'm like, hey, like I kind of like the slower pace of no icon abilities and just having to focus on dodging or parrying or figuring out when to switch up, lobbing fireballs from afar and when to close in. And then when you shifted to the second demo, I was like, oh, this is way too much all at once. All the shuffling between all the different icon abilities just felt like a little much. But as you gain them organically through the main game, I start to see, okay, you kind of carve out your own combos that you can create for yourself. And I think that has its own kind of gratifying payoff to it when you discover something that you like and you can stick to it, or okay, I can cycle through this, from Phoenix to Gorilla at this time and take advantage of this enemy state when they're staggered or whatnot. I don't know, it gives like a unique feel to the combat that I definitely missed in 15. One thing that's definitely on my mind, and I'm curious for those that have played like a little further, when it comes to like potions and high potions and those items, I love the fact that it's kind of automated. So if you don't have to worry about picking them up and then jumping over an item, that was a thing that 15 would happen all the time. You're trying to pick up an item and then you hop. But I don't know. It feels like the difficulty of the game is highly dependent on whether you have enough potions stocked up. So for example, I died to Garuda because it was tough fight, right? And I was trying to aggro it, and then I realized I could retry with all of my potions. Like, we're going to restock you with more potions and high potions. I'm like, well, this is way too many potions than I need, and was kind of able to steamroll through it. How does that kind of play out as you play through the game?
Like that. I mean, I think I only died once in the base game.
Dang.
I've died way more times in Final Fantasy mode. It's way tougher, which is fun because I think the game's just too easy. But it's also very forgiving, and I think that for me personally, like I think they have made so many concessions, I think out of a concern for people who don't like action games. Like obviously, like it's not as easy as Final Fantasy 15, which was like I don't even know.
You
what
literally pushed one button in Final Fantasy, like. You've seen the memes, people memeing about the guy who's just holding one button in like the first fight in this game. And you can do that with the timely accessories if you really want. But 15 base combat was you hold a button.
Right. And like maybe like you fly around a little bit and then you hit. I mean, like it was pretty weak there. And I think that they have been so concerned about that they are, and they're so forgiving when you die, which they refill all those potions.
Right.
And eventually you're going to have like 8 regular potions and 5 high potions.
Wow.
And if you have 0, they will refill all of them. They take that out in Final Fantasy mode.
Okay, they do increase the limits because
I am plus based.
Okay, thank God. Not because I'm using the potions. I'm not needing to use them, but because I feel like I'm wasting them because I have cap and then I find a potion in the ground, and if I'm full health, it still just uses it to make room. And I'm like, why is my pouch so small?
No, I totally agree. And, later on, when you get Limit Break, like it will regen your health when you're using Limit Break. So like I very rarely, when I was picking up potions, was it like going into my inventory. Either it was being used immediately and like healing me all the way, or it was just wasted. And so sometimes I would actually walk past a potion when I thought it was going to be a fight. And then I thought I might get hit, and then I would walk back to grab it. But yeah, I think it's I definitely do think that, at least for me personally, like, and I'm not like super good at action RPGs, like, or action games. Like, I've played Bayonetta and I like them, but I'm not like amazing at Bayonetta or anything. But here I'm like, especially by the end, like, you're just obliterating everything. And it's still fun, but I could have used maybe just a touch more challenge personally.
Yeah, I feel like it's, I don't know. I don't want to blanket statement any, publisher or developer, but I wish that games like these had more accessibility options up front, where like if you wanted to be like, hey, like make it so it doesn't auto use a potion. Like I want the challenge, right? Like, give players the option to pick and choose what they want to do. Because I'd love to just start on the mode that you're describing, like that. Yeah, don't use up the potions. Make me really work for it. That sounds fun.
Yeah, like when you die there, it doesn't refill potions. And so I was just running through the section where you get the limit break, and I died like 4 times. I was like, This is awesome.
Yeah.
I was excited.
It's even honestly kind of weird that there is an accessibility section in the settings, and it's not the option that's there is a good option for people who are hard of hearing or deaf. But that's the only option that's in that menu, is the waveform that lets you basically see where sound is coming from. There's no other accessibility options in that menu. It's all then the accessories that you can optionally equip. And it is exactly the way that it was described in the previews, where you have 3 accessory slots, which you can freely equip with whatever you want. You don't have to use the timed accessories, or you can use a combination to suit your preferences. And it's an interesting setup. I'm still kind of lukewarm about it because I think there are pros and cons to how they did it. I really wish that they had more accessibility options in the settings menu. Things for visually impaired people, since there's nothing for visually impaired people beyond like some of the mechanic accessories that let you slow down time to have more time to dodge and whatnot. Which I will freely admit, I have that particular accessory turned on because while I am not like, I'm okay at action games and I like action games, but I often have reflex issues where it's hard for me to read enemies and hit the button to dodge or evade in time. And sometimes that can frustrate me. So I have that one on as a backup. I honestly don't end up activating it super often because if you time your dodge well enough, you don't even see the slowdown. So I have that there more as like a backup in case something surprises me and I just really can't read an enemy. So I like that. It's nice to have that option, but I feel like it's really weird that there's an accessibility menu, which is one essentially accessibility option and not more. And for things like, more subtitle options or different options for like, so you see games like Last of Us, and those are games like that's a masterclass in accessibility options. And
I just finished that game, and compared to this, it's like that's doing 100 times more things.
Yeah, so I mean, I could go on and on about the issues with having most of your accessibility options be accessories and limiting how much you can equip at a time, and then making a decision about, well, do I use these or do I use other accessories that like boost my defense or make me heal more or something like that? But I think I've already discussed that before.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that there's no real reason for them not to have added a couple other things in there. And Yoshi P stuck his foot in his mouth a few too many times in the lead up to the release of this game, and that was certainly one of them. The racial representation issue, even worse. But yeah. And I think, for me, I like the base combat. I wish there was a little more enemy variety. Like, I feel like even like the Dragoon fights, which I think are incredible. Like, I love, and like they use Estinia's voice actor.
Yes!
I was like, oh, it's so cool. And I thought the fight was so cool.
That was so amazing.
And that epic shot. And like, I was still like happy to fight Dragoons every time. But let me tell you, you're going to fight Dragoons a lot in this game, and dragons, and all those enemies. You've seen almost all of them at this point.
Do all of the Dragoons use Estinian's voice actor?
I'm not sure, because I didn't even know that they used Estinian's voice actor until the demo came out and someone noticed it. And I went back and played it. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I missed this because I love Estinian. So it's cool. But yeah, I think those are cool. But I think the boss fights always feel really different, and I love the boss fights and the icon fights. I think they do a good job there of rolling out the complexity of those fights as well. Like, I think the Garuda fight, like gets maybe a little QTE heavy, but then like you get more things to engage with as you're playing as your icon as it goes. But it's really like the scale of them that is so cool. Like, I don't even care about the complexity of those fights. And that's even why I can forgive the combat to some degree, because it's just so fun. Even if I think it's a little too easy and that I could have used more accessibility options and given me more, I just had a blast with it. Like, I just think it's so polished the way that it's presented.
Yeah, I'm enjoying. I mean, like, I don't even have Garuda yet, so I am fairly limited in what I can do combat wise, but I'm still enjoying it a lot. It's flashy and it's fun, and I'm fine. I mean, like, I love turn-based combat too, but this was really fun and kind of it fits the feel of the game a lot, I think.
Yeah, I think anybody who played 15 and then is kind of from playing that is very apprehensive about like Final Fantasy taking more of an action RPG approach. I think this game should like allay those fears a lot. Like, this is night and day compared to that game, in my opinion, just in how it feels and how that it's a lot more technical and it's a lot more fun just in general. There's a lot more room for player expression. So, it just feels really fun to play moment to moment. And I mean, that's, I think, the most important thing probably for a combat system. So even if the little elements, may not all be there, I can't imagine anybody coming away from this game and not having a good time.
I agree. So I think that's enough about combat. Let's move on to, I think, maybe the other big thing here, which is the storytelling. And we obviously don't have a lot to talk about here in terms of the story yet. But I do want to talk about like the way it's paced out and the way the cutscenes are used and sort of some of our favorite characters early on. I have some criticisms about the way the story is presented that I'll talk about as well, without getting too specific. So what are people's early impressions of the story itself? What are some characters you've liked? How do you like the pacing of it? Do you feel like it's too on rails early on? What do you got so far?
Yeah, so I think that the Game of Thrones comparison that was brought up earlier, and I think that's like pretty obvious. Like there's so many scenes where they're in like tents, like about to go on a battlefield, and the characters are talking, or they're around a big war table talking. Like, you can really see the influence, but I think it's those like similarities are very surface level. The game itself, the story itself, is much more focused, and I think focused around Clive as a character, his backstory, and then his interaction with the world. And it's not, I think some people kind of think of like Game of Thrones or that style of storytelling is very complex with a bunch of different characters everywhere and a lot of different motivations and relationships to like think about and manage as you're seeing the story play out. And this game is definitely more, I think, more simple, more streamlined, and I think that's to its strength. And it really is like focused around Clive as kind of the lodestone through which you understand this world and the other characters that inhabit it. And I think that kind of makes it I think it makes it easier to engage with and in some ways more enjoyable, especially for a video game.
And Ben Starr's performance as
oh my god, he's so good,
otherworldly. Mm-hmm. I think I saw some interview where like he apparently wasn't the first choice. I'm like, whoever the first choice was, I'm so glad they didn't get it, because not only that, but he's also just like a lovely guy. Like, if you ever watch interviews, he's promoting it. He loves Final Fantasy. He talked today about how much he loved
himself.
Chained Echoes, which I've been like, you say you love Chained Echoes, I'm here for that.
Yes,
love that game. So yeah, I mean, I think the vocal performances here, like Ralph Ineson as Sid, is fantastic.
Standout character. Yeah.
I could listen to that guy like talk about zoning laws for like 6 hours straight.
Yeah. I mean, he was in Game of Thrones too. He was like on the Iron Islands in that show. And he's kind of all around British TV. Alana, I was talking to her about it. And she's like, yeah, he's like the voiceover on like every other commercial on TV. And I'm like, we need to watch more British commercials then. So yeah, I think that the voice acting is so good. I think that, Benedicta, who I think I have some issues with the way she's characterized and with the way some of the main female cast in this game are characterized. I think Jill is a very weak character. and they make some efforts to characterize her better, but man, she gets shelved so often. And I think that she's like, her character trait is like, she likes Clive. I'm not really sure I could tell you a whole lot beyond that. But they still bring these characters that I think are not as well characterized as they need to be to life so well. And I love the voice acting in this game. It's so strong. And Sid is going to win our best supporting character of 2023. Like, I have no doubt in my mind about that.
I feel like every Final Fantasy game has to have like one like really suave kind of like side character who never like kind of is about to steal the show and like maybe is the main character, you know, like as a 12
like
Stan,
Balthier,
you know, like for 15, Ignis was kind of that for me. Like, I just love those characters that just always give a little bit of side sass, you know?
Oh man, there's a really great character who, I guess I'll just call him Graybeard, but he is like my favorite right now.
Oh my gosh. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, like,
that dude is awesome.
He is.
And I can say the other character's name, Mid, also who's great. Not sure if you've met her yet. It's not really a spoiler.
I've seen the memes.
Yeah.
The only
fantastic.
Mid thing in Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah. It's totally accurate. She's phenomenal. I mean, like, we talk about like weaknesses in female characterization. I think that she helps with that. And I actually like a lot of the NPCs, and like, there's one, I think it's really sex worker positive. You meet a woman named Isabel, who I think is a really great character. I like Martha, who most of you have met at this point. So I don't think it's totally weak on that front, but man, some of the characters you meet in the second half are almost as good as Sid. And yeah, there's so many great characters in this game.
Oh man, I love Vivian and her stories.
Yeah, Vivian's fantastic too. I forgot about her.
Yeah, I'm already like meeting the people at the hideaway has been fun. Different, like just the characters that are fulfilling the roles of like, oh, here's your shopkeeper or here's your blacksmith.
Karen and Blackthorn, also great characters.
Oh man, and Gav is such a bro, and I also think that Goots needs to be protected at all costs.
Yes.
Oh my gosh,
the voice does not fit the man.
The Hordor, is he the Hordor? Basically,
yeah, he's definitely the Hordor.
Yeah, just way more, I guess, like equipped to kind of just like have like conversations and stuff. He's a little more simple, but like he's such a sweetheart and such a good-hearted man.
Yeah, and can we all talk about the most important character in the entire game?
Torgal. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Puppy Torgal is amazing in everything, but
so you can't pet Puppy Torgal, which is a crime.
I know, right? It is a total crime.
Alana
just bought the puppy plush, so I will be petting that plush very frequently, very soon here. My goodness. I think it's like such a simple thing to give you like this loyal companion, but and I think that you could argue that you would like maybe more party interactions, but I don't even care because I can pet Torgal whenever I want.
Yeah, he comes in clutch too. There's a lot of moments where Clive would be very dead without Torgal being there. So I think he's like super integral to the game. And it's cool. You can kind of call him in whenever, have him like do combos with you and stuff. Yep. It's just like a really neat, I think like if you're going to have a pet character, like the implementation of Torgal in this game is very good as far as like getting you to care about him and making him a part of the gameplay. So.
Yeah, Torgal's, oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's a lot. I really love some scenes that he has in the story. A lot of really cool stuff. But I think my favorite one is the one that Caitlin's coming up to you, where I'll just say it's like a combo attack, and it's the coolest like hypest thing. And I was like, it's best boy. Like, there's no chance for our game of the year. What is it, like pet
or mascot character?
Yeah.
I mean, like, come on.
Yeah.
It's not even.
He's number one, and if anyone argues otherwise, I'll sick Torgal.
He's number one and number two. Come on.
Yes.
Torgal and Puppy Torgal.
Yes. Yes.
You know, I am the features manager, so I can make that happen. At least in terms of making them both options to vote for.
We know that.
Yeah, I think that the characters in this game, because I think that one of the things about this game, in terms of its pacing, I think in the first 5 hours, like I was not super sold. Like I liked this game, but I wasn't as sold on this game as I think a lot of people have been in the early going. Like I think like Joshua and all the stuff that happens in the flashback is great. I think it's really emotional what happens at the end there. And I can just spoil it when, Ifrit comes and rips Phoenix apart. It's like, and Ben Starr's voice acting during that is great. And it's such a great baseline for the game. But like eventually I was like, all right, like I kind of I want a little more RPG in my Final Fantasy. And I think because like a lot, sort of in the latter portions of the game, it has like a rhythm where like you will travel to a town, you'll meet like sort of the person who's in charge there, like your contact, and then you will get side quests and like sort of get to know the town and the people. And I think that for all the praise that the big, enormous set pieces are going to get, I think that and, meeting the people and the characterization. And personally, I know the side quests have gotten a lot of flack and a lot of reviews, but I think especially in the latter portions of the game, the side quest writing becomes really good and helps really fill out the people of Valistia. And I think, I use this phrase like mixing the intimate with the epic in my review. And I think that is why this game hits such high highs for me personally.
For like the side quests, I actually haven't had any issues with them. Like they've all felt like they've added to the world and just kind of like, filled in your codex a little bit.
Totally agree.
And you always get something that you need. Like I was super excited to do a side quest because I might get like a material that I need for crafting. But there was a quest where you have to go point A to point B to point C, back to A, back to C, back to B, back to A. And it kind of feels like it serves as a reminder of like how old fetch quests used to feel. And so I kind of hated that quest, but it was nice that it kind of, breathed some life into the world. But it also kind of felt like, just like the devs shaking their finger being like, it could be this bad.
I know exactly what quest you're talking about. And yeah, I agree. I think that one was a little frustrating. But I think like when you get to like when you're going north up into Sandbreck, like out in that field area, there are a couple of quests out there that are so dark that I think are really good. And even like the couple of occasional fetch quests don't really bother me. And I'm just like, when people are criticizing, I'm like, what are you looking for in a quest? Like, do you want the rewards to be even better? Like, I think it's not like The Witcher 3 good in terms of the writing in the side quests, but like, I think it's in the same ballpark sometimes. And I don't really understand the criticism because none of them take very long to complete for the most part, except for that one you're talking about. So I think they're great. I would encourage everybody to do them.
Yeah, for me, I'm not the biggest fan of The Witcher 3, and all of the side quests, at least that I did in that game, kind of felt like it would be better off for those people if I never did the side quest at all. Because it kind of felt like, in like Uncharted or Indiana Jones or something where you step into the temple and it starts to collapse. So it would have been better if you didn't step in the first place. And it was nice to not have quests like that in 16 to where it kind of feels like I'm actively helping people and not just making lives worse. So it was kind of refreshing to me, especially with how like kind of grim and dark the game is. But there are definitely some very dark ones to where like even if I was a couple minutes too late, I can at least kind of help the survivor of an attack or something like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. One thing I want to talk about related to like storytelling is the active time lore system. So I think that this is like probably the most genius thing about the game and like the best innovation. I know that there is some like debate about whether it's good or not, but I love it. Like the ability to pause any cutscene.
Okay, hold up for a second here. Who's saying they don't like it? Like, I don't understand.
I've heard people say that like they're not explaining the concepts to you. So what happens is they're just throwing out like proper nouns and then the game expects you to like pull them up. But I don't really think that that's necessarily true. I think most of the context is pretty clear from most of the scenes. But if you want to know more, then it lets you do that at any time. And I think that's huge. Like it makes the conversations feel so much more natural because in a lot of games you have like the characters have to just like start into like exposition dialogue to explain like something to the player, which they wouldn't say in like a natural sounding conversation. And this game just like completely eliminates all of that. So they can throw out a term or a country or a group of people And then they, know that you can just pause and pull it up at any time and find out all the little details you want to know. But you also never need to do that to know the basics of what's going on. It's really masterful, I think.
When I first saw it, I thought it was like the dumbest thing. I was like, no one's going to do this. And then I think within the first couple hours, I was like, who the hell is that guy? And then I hit pause and I was like, oh, that's who you are. So it's come in handy a lot for me. But it also, if you remember some RPGs back in the day, where I think one of the Final Fantasies did it, maybe like 2, where like someone would say something and the text would be highlighted in red. And then you could like hit square or something and then get some more context about what that is. So it definitely feels like that, but in real time for dummies like me who are like, who is that guy?
And it's really cool how it updates as you go through, new cutscenes will add new entries that add more context, and you can go back in the hideaway and talk to I'm blanking on his name, but you can look at the tomes and see all the different entries, like the first entry and then the next one and the next one, and see how they change over the course of the game. And that was really cool.
Yeah, I think that because in the latter portions of the game, you will get these sections where and Des, remind me of her name again. She'll kind of explain. I can't remember. Oh my gosh,
Was it Vivian?
Vivian, yeah. Well, she'll kind of explain the world, and I definitely think early on, like, it kind of throws you into the deep end a little bit, and you just kind of have to like muddle your way through. They make it way more explicit later on, but I think that even if they didn't have the Vivian explanations, which are delightful, so I love them anyway, that active time lore thing is just, it's so cool, and like it's slick, like the way it looks, and it gives you just enough information. And most of the time it's information that it gives you in game, but there are occasionally times where it will tell you things that you didn't already know. Like I think the ones about the dominance in particular are really interesting, because I learned a little bit about like what the world must have looked like before, like in the time of the Fallen or whatever. So yeah, I think it's super cool.
Can the Fallen, does that get, do they do things with the Fallen? Because I feel like they're hinting at something there, but I'm not sure if that's something that they're going to tug on, or if it's just like they're ancient ruins of a previous civilization, because like most RPGs, you have, there's an ancient civilization, something bad happened to them.
It's interesting. I thought they would do more with the Fallen. Like, sort of how you find out how their civilization collapsed, and you find out a little bit more about them, but it's interestingly not like some super integral part of the world. Not as much as I expected it to be. It didn't bother me at all, really. But I guess like, it makes the world feel like it has a history, but like that history is just sort of flavor rather than being something critical to the game itself.
Yeah, it kind of feels like this game's version of like the Ancients from 7, where it's just kind of like you don't know too much about them, but you get little bits and pieces here and there. But they definitely do kind of dig more into it, at least where I'm at. And it's been interesting, but yeah, I guess on one hand, they're not beating you over the head with it like some games do, where they're just like, this is how it used to be 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they do a really nice job with it.
They do look really cool. The ruins themselves look really neat.
You do get the opportunity to explore some of the ruins. That happens relatively early. And it's really cool. I think it feels so different from the rest of the game, and like this medieval fantasy setting that, like, for me, I was like, yeah, give me this like Azizla type thing. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it feels kind of like that, but it's not as critical to the storytelling as everything around Azizla is in Final Fantasy XIV.
And there was a moment that I got to recently where tying into, I feel like there's so many little nods throughout, even just what I've played, to Final Fantasy as a series in general, like using the prelude theme in some of the opening in media res opening part of the games, obviously the nods to 14 here and there, but then that little brief conversation between Sid and Clive talking about, these ruins from the Fallen, I think it used to be something called an airship and it can't fly anymore, and what a shame that is. And I was like, you cheeky bastards, are you making a reference to like Sid Highwind or something like that?
For sure. Yeah.
Like, I was like, I love it.
Yeah.
Speaking of references, keep your eye out for a bard.
Oh my gosh.
A
I forgot about
spoony
that.
bard?
Yes.
Yes.
Like I was just walking through and I saw the word Spoony Bard and I was like, you jerks.
It's so fantastic.
And I'm kind of hoping there's like a wyvern called like a wyvern from the old terrible 5 translation. So
That would be fun. I don't think so, but that would be fun.
yeah, it's like you got one, I just need the other.
Yeah, so I think we've covered most of what I wanted to talk about. Is there anything else in terms of the early going that you really wanted to cover, or I guess questions for me or Des who are further along, things you want to know about the game going forward? I've covered most of what I want to talk about.
I had something for you, Zach.
Yeah.
So I know that 15 gets a lot of flack, and I'm bringing it up a lot in this conversation. But one thing I really did like about that game was when you're doing side content, and I get why we have the linear segments to kind of kick us off in 16, and I don't particularly mind them. I think they're serviceable, but I do notice that you have that kind of, you're trying to walk someplace and very clearly you feel that force field, and it's pretty. But one thing I really appreciated about 15 was these kind of intricate dungeon designs where you kind of get lost in these labyrinthine kind of structures. Does 16 have anything like that?
No.
Is there any? So it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, you have a pretty good feel for the way the dungeons work at this point.
Yeah.
They get maybe a little bit longer and maybe a tiny bit more complicated, but they're very, very linear. You're not going to get what is that stupid dungeon in 15 where you have to do platforming.
You mean the best?
The last
dungeon?
thing
I'm
I
kidding.
did in that game.
I'm
I did not enjoy it, but I did like the other really big, massive dungeons in 15.
Yeah.
I actually like 15 more than a lot of people, but yeah, there's really nothing like that. It is definitely a more controlled experience than that. You do get hunts later on, which is cool.
As a 12 fan, I'm excited to try out the hunts. I really am.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's really the only place that if you want to challenge yourself in the base game, I think at some point I got an S mark when I was level 36. And it was level 50, and I was like, I'm doing it. I don't care.
I love it.
And
Yes.
I
did you do it?
I managed to do it.
Nice.
I think actually, when they were playing at the announcement event, they were doing that very hunt. And it was the same one that I had done. And I was like, yeah, this one's awesome. Because it was actually a reskin of a later boss that you haven't even seen yet. So it was the first time I'd seen it. So that was cool. Because usually the hunts are just reskins. But there is a red chocobo hunt, and it's super cool.
Oh, no.
It's actually kind of hard, too.
Oh, no. That brings back nightmares from Bosja.
I know, right? Oh, my gosh. Every time I saw that hunt come up or whatever they called them in Bosja, I was like, nope, not doing that.
No, I did it once and never again.
Yep, that was exactly my experience. I died 3 times when I did it that one time as well, and I was like, that's enough for me.
I will say, kind of related to the linearity, as I've been playing, at first I was like, okay, I'll go to this area for the main story, and it winds up being, it's only for the main story. Once you finish it, you can't go back. And I was like, oh, but that area was pretty, and I'm pretty sure I got everything from there, but what if I just wanted to run through it again? So it was nice to have the option with the stone in your hideaway that lets you redo those linear sections again. And, either to find stuff you missed or to do it in the arcade mode where you can challenge yourself to get a high score. So I like that. I mean, the ideal would have been just let me go back and explore, whenever I want to from the main map. But it was nice to give the option for that.
I agree. And I think that's cool. And speaking of arcade mode, I know I've been like, oh, this game isn't that challenging. If you decide to go and play the New Game Plus mode and you want a challenge, go try the Ultimaniac arcade mode. It is insane. On that very first level where you fight the Fafnir, I got killed by the second mob all 6 times that I tried. I was like, okay. So yeah, there are challenges to be had in this game eventually. It just takes too long to get there.
Yeah, some of the hunts have been absolutely absurd for me. I fought my first A rank, which I think was the 9 of Knives, and yeah, that's just a reskin of the ninja boss battle from earlier on in Kaer Norvin, but that thing was tough, and it really kind of put me to the test. And so I appreciate that the hunts are kind of very challenging. But I also like how you basically just get an idea of where they're at. And as far as I know, there's no way to open up your menu and find out where they're pointed. So It's really fun to just kind of be like, okay, I want these 4. They're all in this area. I'm just gonna go walk around and find them.
Yeah, and one of the cool things is with S ranks, they are very, very vague. They'll be like, this person, they won't even give you like a location like they do for the rest of them. They'll just say like, this person was walking from Caer Norvent to Northreach, and they said they saw, a big dragon. And then you have to go figure out, like, look at your map, think about where it is in the path. And honestly, like, I'm the kind of person who, like, if I'd played the game after release, I would just look it up immediately because I'm impatient. But I still thought it was cool to, like, give you that option to, like, go and kind of explore around and go find stuff. It made it feel, like, more organic. So, yeah, we didn't talk much about the music, but, the music in this game is fantastic. I love like the leitmotif of Prelude and Final Fantasy theme and the way they do it over and over again in different ways. And those icon fights, like the music is so epic, but it also has like this dark, moody feel. Like apparently, like they said, hey, Soken, you need to write 160 songs for this game. And he wrote over 200 because he is a machine.
He's a madman.
Incredible. The music here is so good. I don't even know what else to say about it. It's good.
Yeah, one of the things that struck me as I was exploring some of the opening areas is for the regular mob fights, not the mid bosses or the bosses. It's just a layered arrangement of the area theme, which I always love when games do that. Like I'm a huge fan of games doing sort of layered atmospheric music where it starts off low and then you have a battle version or a tension version and stuff like that. Like I love that in the Deus Ex games, for example. But I was thinking to myself, okay, that's cool, but that's that's perfect for Soken. Soken is a master at taking a theme and making like a bazillion different arrangements of it and having them all sound great and work together. And so I was like, this is chef's kiss. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you think about Soken's strengths, I think that one of the things he does really well is the variety in the types of music. And you don't have that as much here. But the other strength that he has is taking a previous theme, recontextualizing it, and making it awesome. Like, I don't know who did the mashup of Final Fantasy main theme and Kaine at the end of Tower of Paradigm's Breach, but it's like one of my favorite tracks in all of video games. I think it's amazing.
And it's like really great that with like Soken, he's got so much variety, but at least to me, every track that I hear just kind of like bleeds Soken. So he's kind of like a modern day Sakuraba to me, to where like when you hear it, you know it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember hearing stuff from like the previews and the trailers, and I was like, yeah, that definitely sounds like Soken, and it almost sounds like it is something that would not be unusual to hear in Final Fantasy XIV. I swear I heard leitmotifs that sounded like they were directly like thematically referencing Final Fantasy XIV themes, and I was like, yes, bring it, I need it. So, and I'm just like, I've said this before, I'm really just excited for the people playing this game who have not played Final Fantasy XIV and have not listened to Final Fantasy XIV soundtrack, because I think they are in for a treat. Like those of us who know Soken know what to expect, and we are still eating very well, but I'm excited to have his music extend to an audience beyond the MMO crowd, the people who wouldn't even touch 14 because of an MMO, or just aren't interested, or don't have time or money or whatnot, because y'all are in for some really good shit.
Hard agree.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, that was a good conversation. Thanks for chatting about it. I'm excited to hear what everybody thinks as they get closer to the end. I hope I didn't spoil anything too big or too massive, because I think that there are moments in this game that I would never want to give away before someone gets the opportunity to experience them for themselves. It goes some really interesting places. And I'm glad that you guys are all seem to be enjoying it so far. And haven't let the discourse get you down too much, at least. So that's it for this episode. Let's kind of talk a little bit about some housekeeping things. So if you enjoyed this episode, you can go back and you can listen to a ton, 271 of other episodes hosted by a variety of people of Random Encounter. But we also have two other fine podcasts, Retro Encounter, which currently is on a bi-weekly schedule about usually retro related things, usually hosted by Mike Slocy, recently mostly hosted by me. And also Rhythm Encounter, which is also every 2 weeks. It's about RPG music. You can hear, that's usually hosted by Mike Salvato, sometimes Hillary. And it's a great time just to go listen to some good tunes. And I am certain that Final Fantasy XVI will be making an appearance on Rhythm Encounter very, very soon. Otherwise, if you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at podcast@rpgfan.com. You can also review us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, anywhere you can rate things, you can rate us, and we would love it if you did that. Before we close out the show, I'd like to talk about how we can get in touch with each of the individual panelists, starting with you, Ben.
Yeah, so I don't have a Twitter or anything, but you can email me at benloganlove@gmail.com if you want to get in touch with me.
Excellent. And Des?
I also avoid Twitter, but I am in the RPG Fan Discord, so feel free to pop in and say hi and see what's up.
Awesome. And Caitlin?
You can email me at caitlina@rpgfan.com.
Awesome. And David?
I reluctantly still do have my Twitter, but you can reach me at David_Silbert, SILBERT. And that's that.
Awesome. And if you want to get in touch with me, I am unfortunately on Twitter, but it's very difficult to find me because it's all shut down because I'm a teacher. So the easiest way to get in touch with me is via email, zachw@rpgfan.com. You can also find me on our Discord at zachw. And so thanks everybody so much for joining. I had a great time chatting with everybody. I think this game is special and I liked it a lot. And I'm glad to hear that mostly all of you were enjoying it so far as well. So thank you also listeners for listening to us talk for almost an hour and a half about this game. And whatever you're playing, have fun.